All right, now we gotta start to figure out how we're gonna attach these legs and rails together. The way we're gonna do it is by what's called a mortise and tenon. So when you see a slot like that, that's called a mortise. And then we have a peg like this that goes into the mortise, that's called a tenon. So this case is called a loose or a floating tenon, and that goes into the mortise again. And then goes into the mortise, and then when we glue that together, it makes a pretty strong joint. The question is, why don't we just glue it together? Well, two things. The mortise and tenon help align the joint, and then it allows the face of the wood right here to put glue on it, and then we're going to put glue on the face of the wood on the inside here. So you never want, or it's not a really strong joint to have glue on this part of the board. That's the end grain of the board. The glue just kind of soaks it up and doesn't contribute to the strength of the adhesion. So we want to make sure that we glue long grain to long grain. So we have long grain to long grain. So we got to lay these mortises out and make some cuts. So what I have here is a big rail, an example of the layout of the mortise on the big rail, and on the leg I have an example of the mortise on the rail as well. So when I'm saying all these measurements here pretty soon, and you forget them, grab this example and use this as a reference. So I'm going to start with the rail, which is right here. And I'm going to find the center of the rail from here to here. So okay, I think that's looking halfway decent there. So from here to here is 3/4 of an inch. Half of 3/4 is 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to grab my little square here and measure out 3/8 of an inch. So on my square, each one of these big lines is 1/8 of an inch. So 1, 2, 3, make a mark. So with that mark made, I can do one or two things. I can use my square, put my pencil on the line I just made, and then slide my square to that. Oops, too much. And use my square as a way to mark my center and follow that along. That's the center mark right there. It's kind of hard to see on that color wood we have. So we have the center from here to here, from here to here. And then we're going to mark 3/16 out this way and 3/16 out that way. So the 16ths are the little lines. 1, 2, 3, make a mark. 1, 2, 3, make a mark. And then I'm going to opt to use my finger technique here. So I'm going to put my finger right on the side of the wood and then use that to draw a parallel line on both. So there is my mortise. I want to find half. I want to go find the center here. So half of 3 is 1.5. So I will make a mark at 1.5. And carry that to the top of the board. And then the mortise is 2 inches long, so half of 1 is 2. So we'll come up from that center mark 1 inch, and up from the center mark 1 inch. I'll go ahead and shade in the mortise itself so we can kind of see where I'm cutting from. So that's the mortise on the rail. Luckily, you only have to do that once on your rails, but on your rails, you also have to make this mark on all of the rails. So let me do that real quick. So on all the rails, all you have to do is with that original mark you already drew is make another mark like that. Use that as a template to make the rest of your marks. And the last thing you have to do on the rails is, on each one of those rails, transfer that mark you just made to the front. So you should have that mark and that mark on all your rails. So go ahead and do that right quick. All right, so we got that mark and that mark. One more thing. Put an X on one side of the boards. Rails are done. Move on to the legs. First thing we're gonna do in the leg is come down 1.5 inches and make a mark on 2 edges at 1.5 inches. So I made a mark at 1.5 with my square. I'm gonna go ahead and make that mark across the board that way, and just like that. And I go ahead and use this one, transfer the marks to the next board so we don't have to keep measuring. Line up our ends here and make a mark. Next one. Make a mark. Next one. Make a mark. And then with our square, transfer those marks on 2 edges. Our dog. All right, so on all of our legs we have that, and then we're gonna lay out for our mortise. So we gotta go half of 1.5, which is 3/4 of an inch. So we will go with our ruler again, line at the end, mark at 3/4. Then we want to go 3/16 over, 3/16 over, and again these are on the big example over there, and then we want to go 1 inch up and 1 inch down from that center mark. Transfer those lines. I'll use my finger technique here again. And then there's our mortise layout. Okay, so that's it for the mortises.